Well, that race was absolutely insane. Like, I can't remember off the top of my head since maybe Silverstone 2022 a better fully dry race than that. We had battles for the lead, we had scraps between teammates, we had people spinning, we had drama through DNFs, some DNSs, we had drama in quali, the sprint was good. Everything about that, if you're looking for exciting racing, was absolutely there. Yes, some people will say there were some little bits of a stale moment, but you're always going to get that in a race. It's not like, not every race is going to be like Brazil 2012. It's just not, that's just not feasible. But I genuinely, now, I'm obviously wanting to talk about the race, I genuinely don't know where to start. Kimi, Antonelli, do you start with the Ferraris? George Russell and Quali? Do you start with the sprint? The whole format of it all? Do you talk about Red Bull? Do we talk about McLaren, Haas, and Behrman? Like, I mean, we sort of have to just take it through sort of maybe team by team here. Kimi Antonelli. Let's just start with him. I think everybody loved that win, and I think everybody, when he was just getting clear and the Ferraris were battling, everybody was going, just please don't break down. Just please, you deserve this. You've got pole position, and then you've converted that pole position into the win, losing the lead off the start to Lewis and then fighting back through and then just, getting clear. It was just excellent from him. And to see him like crying at the end, you hear Bono coming over, and then there's the podium with Bono. Lewis was up there as well with him just there, and it's just such a landmark moment. I think this is going to be, a very much a defining moment for Kimi Antonelli now. Now, he needs to obviously back it up, and this stuff that he can take, or maybe if he takes it, it's a whole rumour about the fact that whether you can have this like dioxide thing, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, about what he could take, but apparently I think you can take it in Australia and China. I'm waiting to see what happens when we go to a country where, it isn't allowed. And I think Miami is. And it might be in the European races. It might be Austria, might be like Britain, I think. So it's definitely races which he didn't do so well last year. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how he performs there this year, with a car that clearly at this moment in time is the fastest car in a straight line. In the corners, however, it seems to be a bit of a different story at this moment in time. But yeah, unreal from Kimi. It was just a very mature performance. Like, it was just manageable. He had obviously that lockup right at the end, but again, when you're going for your first win, there's going to be little errors like that. Unfortunately, he did it with a lot of runoff. There wasn't any gravel there. I think if he had ended up going off and going into the gravel and getting stuck, I think all of us would have been like just crestfallen, because he absolutely deserved it. George Russell, he did brilliantly after obviously his car stopping in qualifying to then getting P2 on the grid, and then having to, battle with the Ferraris. Well, I say battle with the Ferraris. It's sort of watch the Ferraris battle, which I'll get onto, and then eventually get through and get up the road, and eventually only finish like 5 seconds behind Kimi Antonelli. So a brilliant weekend again from George to recover, obviously, from that situation in Q3 where his car was just stopped. And one of the guys from Mercedes was saying, well, the way we did it was we just turned it off, turned it back on, didn't work, then we turned it off, and then we turned it back on again, and it did work. And then to go out there and do one lap and get it on the front row, it's very innocent. If he had managed to stick it on pole, would have been so sort of like reminiscent of Vettel 2009, where Vettel basically in qualifying had 3 laps in the whole of qualifying. He could only go out for 1 lap in Q1, Q2 and Q3, nailed it every time, and then went on to win the race. So he didn't quite do that because of Kimi's brilliance. To only be second season, have a race-winning car, and then cope with the pressure. Toto Wolff is absolutely right. Everybody's saying, oh, he's too young, all this, that, and the other. He's clearly not too young. Max Verstappen wasn't too young. Is he on the level of Max Verstappen? No. Could he reach the level of a Max Verstappen? Yes. If he's doing this now at 19, second youngest in history, I think, behind Verstappen. I think youngest pole sitter now. He's taken that from Vettel. What are the records now? Which I think that's not going to be broken. Not unless we have a 17-year-old or 18-year-old. Don't think you can be 17 now going into Formula One actually now, but yeah, 18-year-old going into a team straight away at the front and just literally having the fastest car from race one. Like a Lewis Hamilton, for example. But Hamilton was like 22, I think, or 22 or something like that when he came in. I mean, he was like 3 years older than Antonelli, so you can see like the gap between just those two alone, let alone Verstappen. But yeah, Mercedes, brilliant job. Another 1-2, 4 points in between the two drivers in the championship at the moment. So at this moment in time, no one's sprinting clear, which is obviously, ideal for us as fans. Keep it close. Now on to the red team. The second fastest car, possibly with the best driver lineup on the grid. Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton. Honestly, these guys are showing exactly how good these regs are. Brilliant wheel to wheel. They were overtaken in places like Lewis Hamilton seemed to love that. Just after that, the two S's, the left and right hander in that middle sector, he seemed to love going around the outside of that right hander to get the inside line for that left hander. Like they were going wheel to wheel, they were swapping around lap after lap, using the battery deployment in different places, just trying to get in front. Hemorrhaging lap time, which we then saw with the gap that Kimi managed to extend. But oh my days, these two. I mean, if that had been most other drivers on the grid, it wouldn't have ended up like that. It would have ended up with one or both of them in the wall, or one of them with a drive-through penalty through, doing some stupid stuff like forcing them off the track and stuff. What we saw there was fair, hard, and just brilliant racing. We saw other drivers when they tried to go wheel to wheel, they make contact or they spin out. But with these two, they were just brilliant. And again, just getting off the line. Hamilton just got off the line brilliantly on both occasions. I'm genuinely looking forward to Japan here, because if they are the quickest car in the corners, think about what Japan is in terms of probably the first half of the lap. It's all corners. Turn 1, turn 2 sweepers. You've got the S's all the way through. Then you go up through Dunlop. Then you've got the two Degners. And then after the Degners, it's not actually that big of a straight before you then get to the hairpin. After the hairpin, if Ferrari are quicker at the hairpin, and they get out of it quicker, well, Mercedes might be quicker by the time they get to Spoon, but going through Spoon Curve, I think the Ferraris again will be quicker. By the way, Spoon Curve is going to be absolute carnage in the race. You can see, guys diving up the inside of Spoon Curve and then being got back on the exit going down to 130R. Like, that is definitely going to be happening. Like, the Japanese Grand Prix, it's going to be brilliant. The Ferraris, if they're that close, again, they're going to be there or thereabouts, and they're just going to be attacking each other. I mean, hopefully they just think about that and maybe do the attacking later on in the race if they do have the pace advantage to just get clear. And then they could just get out of that, that overtake mode range and just, I say overtake mode range, like DRS range. It is sort of that, isn't it? But I was worried about China with the way it was going to be laid out, whether people were going to be able to switch back on each other, a little bit of thing. But, and it was a different type of circuit with the fact that it was less battery dependent in terms of the fact that you could recharge the battery more, with more braking zones, harder braking zones. You could ease off through a corner to harvest and regen and that kind of stuff. It then meant that, it didn't affect the way people could race. Like with Australia, it didn't affect, you were getting overtaken, as I say, that battle was just, give me that. Actually, no, I don't want that again. Could we just have it slightly less? Because it was borderline almost too much. Like, when people were, you see those, the big YouTubers and podcasters reacting to the race, and you see how they were literally enacting exactly how we felt. Absolutely phenomenal. Lewis Hamilton, big shout out now. He's got his first podium with Ferrari. he's extending that record even more, like 203 podiums now or something that he's got. Ridiculous amount. I mean, if you think about how many podiums that is, that's 10 seasons worth of podiums straight. That's literally how many podiums he's got. And you think about the fact that he hasn't really been on a podium much in the previous, since maybe 2021, is, he's on a podium every now and again, but he wasn't there at all in 2025. So, I mean, it's going to be epic, isn't it, if this continues? And if Ferrari can close that gap to Mercedes, we have got a proper title fight between those four going on. The development race is definitely going to be on for that. Now we do have to move on to... I have to move on to the negative side of things now. McLaren, what are you doing? Electrical issues, you can't switch your car on. Oscar Piastri at least made it round the reconnaissance lap this time, and then still can't race. So he's had 2 DNSs. Lando's had a DNS. I mean, yikes. What on earth is going on there? I mean, in terms of a fall off from a title defence to, in terms of a title defence, is this the worst start we've seen? Maybe McLaren 09? But I think this could be generationally bad for them. Like, what a waste of a load of points they could have had. They could have gained so many points on the likes of a Red Bull. When Red Bull had a bad weekend, Haas ended up, benefiting from all of this and basically taking the points that McLaren would have got, with Behrman. Unreal. By the way, quick shout out to Behrman, by the way. Unbelievable race pace, loving the regs. Again, lots of drivers are suddenly loving these regs. It's quite strange now that, a lot of drivers who suddenly are finding themselves up near the front and having quite nice fun battles are suddenly realising, actually, these regs are all right. So it does seem to be that the drivers who don't like the regs are the ones who aren't at the front and aren't performing very well. But yeah, McLaren, I can't really talk much about you because we don't know anything about your race pace or anything, really. We saw a bit in the sprint, but nothing really to write home about, realistically. Then Red Bull, yikes. Again, I think what we're seeing is, Max Verstappen saying it's still not his way. It might not be his way and what he thinks racing is, but this is now what Formula One is, whether we like it or not. Now, they might change it and things like that, but to say, don't like it, it's, F1, I hated the ground effect. I didn't think that was a truly open-wheeled car with that stupid hubcap and the front wheels that we had in the previous regs. The porpoising that we had, the ridiculous porpoising we had in 2022, where the cars were literally just going like that, that looked stupid. That wasn't Formula One. How is that Formula One with the cars doing that? That shouldn't, cars should be just going straight like that, which they are now doing. So, I think he's very aware that this season could be quite harmful for him in terms of people have quite short-term memories. And people, if Max doesn't start getting right up the front and can't get the hang of these races and can't get... his starts are ridiculously bad. For someone who realistically is quite... he's quite precise in everything he does. That I would have thought he would have been the person that would have sorted out the start the fastest. And then he DNFs. Isaac Hadjar, an unbelievable spin on lap 1, and then fought his way back to P8, which was a fantastic job for him. Behrman almost wiped him out completely, took them both out. And for them to both finish in the points. Isaac Hadjar's had a brilliant start to the season. Unfortunately, again, he had a retirement in Australia, but got his first points, got his way back, so yeah, very happy for him on that one. But yeah, Max, at what point when you've got drivers absolutely loving it, you've got Leclerc saying, oh, that racing actually was really, really fun. And Max is going, it's not racing. Alonso saying it's the Battery World Championship. I'm sure Alonso wouldn't be saying that if that Aston Martin was the fastest car. I I do sort of think that they're saying it because they haven't got the cars underneath them, and they're just, you know, drivers' egos quite fragile. How do you protect it? You make an excuse that's viable. I wouldn't actually call it with an excuse with Max. Actually, I just think his driving style and the way he likes to race just isn't that. And I think already we're seeing someone who, if the Red Bull doesn't improve, I think you could see him just going either this season or the next, like literally just jumping ship. Does he go to? I just can't see it. If he doesn't like these wrecks, and he says, it. Or even if I was winning, I'd still say the same thing. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You'd be absolutely loving it if you had a battle like what Leclerc and Hamilton had. You would be absolutely buzzing if you came out on top in a battle like that. You know, you would be loving life. Sorry, I just don't buy that at all. You know, it's like the things like that. It's just like, if you don't like something, then fine, but come on. Anyway, less ranting about that. I just get annoyed because I'm always someone who wants to give regs a chance, and we've had 2 weekends and we've had 2 brilliant races at 2 tracks which sometimes don't always produce brilliant racing. Australia definitely doesn't, and now it has. China's been absolutely brilliant, and now we're going into Japan, which last year was a stinker. This year could be generational, but ultimately these regs are going to be truly tested at what is now race 4 on the first weekend of May, where we go to Miami. If Miami is a generational race where we've got drivers swapping backwards and forwards through that first sector, going through the second sector, going round the outside, switchbacking each other, diving into the hairpin. If Miami is a generational race, my God, the regs have done it. If Miami works and Miami is brilliant, I think we're all going to go, okay, it's made Miami good. We're in good hands with these regs if it's making Miami look good. And plus, at some point, they're going to get the dirty air is going to come back. So, at some point, like last year, we're going to have it at some point in the future with these regs where, we'll have lap 1 and then the person will have to drop behind like 2 or 3 seconds because of the dirty air to look after their tyres. People don't have to do it with these cars because we don't have the dirty air at this moment in time. Maybe because of the way the rear wings work and the front wings, the way they flatten out. So therefore you've got that power, but for some reason you can follow much, much closer in these regs and you can overtake it to different places. And the fact that we've only had one safety car through, and it wasn't even through a crash, it was through obviously the Aston Martin breaking down. By the way, speaking of Aston Martin, let's get on to them. Alonso, I genuinely have sympathy for him, the same thing, in terms of the fact that is Aston Martin and everything they've said that they were going to do, and they've just brought all these people, and that car, he couldn't hold the wheel. He couldn't hold the wheel. That car isn't safe. That car is not safe to drive. And it's going to do, probably at some point in the future, it's going to do pretty bad damage to one of them. When we get to like a place like Baku, which is bumpy anyway, at a bumpy track, that Aston Martin's going to be awful. Yeah. Get onto a negative again, but there are many, when you've got a race like this, where you've got people in the midfield getting points, and big points. By the way, my driver of the day, it's between Behrman and Antonelli. Probably Behrman, because who expected a Haas to finish P5 in a race like that? And it was legit P5. It's not like he had... I think we don't really know what happened with the McLarens and where their race pace would have been, but I think he would have been there or thereabouts with them. And, he was ahead of both the Red Bulls. So, again, you have to discount the fact that with Max Verstappen, I think Max Verstappen was behind him when he retired, so it's not like he gained a position from that. So, yeah, China, unreal. The sprint, again, just chaos everywhere. The Mercs ended up coming through in the end. But again, just brilliant battling. I've already said one of my mates who I know is going to Singapore sprint with these regs. Can you imagine those cars switch back in each other, turn 7, boosting past each other on the little straights? Those straights are just long enough where if you boost right, you are going to be going side by side into a corner to try and overtake. Singapore could be generational. Again, one of those tracks that could be massively improved. Hungary. Silverstone, I'm now, after seeing China, I am actually less concerned about Silverstone now with the lack of braking zone. But if this is what we're going to get throughout the season, oh my days, bring it on, because it's going to be amazing. You know what? There's people saying, don't like it. What? So you like what last year when we had no overtaking at all? Just whoever finished first on lap 1 won the race. I mean, of course, if you're a Max fan, you probably do prefer last year's regs because Max could drive it and, had a fastest... the debate on whether he had the fastest car or not, or one of the fastest cars, or whether he was out driving it, I think we're answering it a little bit this season. But yeah, going into Japan in a week and a half's time, a Ferrari could be the fastest car there. But then again, if they're the fastest car there, we know what'll happen with Ferrari. They'll go out on a dry track or something and get it disastrously wrong and finish P8. Yes, that seems to be the Ferrari way sometimes. Yeah, but anyway, Kimi Antonelli, born 2006, race winner 2026. Let's see now whether he can truly fight for this title. Because if he does truly fight for this title, could unsettle George. But yeah, I'll leave it there. But yeah, China absolutely smashed it. Yeah. Japan, no pressure, but you also know what to do. Let's go.